All right, guys, we're going to talk about a team that did barely make postseason play because of 4 consecutive wins outside of the conference, combined with a 2-6 slate in the SEC. And Jamie, we're going to tee you up for your Auburn Tigers, a team that, made it pay off getting that bid to postseason play and beating a pretty good Memphis team and playing maybe its best game of the season against Memphis. Also a good outing against Texas A&M that last month. So. Maybe a little bit better play out of your Auburn Tigers late in the season, but now kind of a transitional time moving into this season, and we'll start at quarterback, and you can take us anywhere you want looking at the Auburn Tigers right now with the spring game just concluded.
You know, starting with quarterback, like you said, is the most important position to the Auburn football program right now. You've got 3 guys. I don't think that any of them have been able to establish themselves as the guy that's going to make the difference for Auburn just yet. I believe that John Franklin III has the most opportunity to do that for one reason and one reason only, and that's because of his skill with his legs. It's not going to be because he's the most polished passer. It's not going to be because he's had the most time in the offense. It's going to be he can cause a defense the most opportunity to be strained and stressed over anything else that the other guys can do. John Franklin can do things similar to what has made Gus Malzahn successful over the years, which is stretch the defense east and west more than they were able to do with a traditional style quarterback behind center. And Franklin, with all of his shortcomings, which includes a lack of good weight, if you consider that imported in the SEC, and I do. Also with a lack of pure passer's accuracy, which he's never going to have. He can do things that's going to help make Auburn successful on the perimeter as well as down the field, more so than Sean White and definitely more so than Jeremy Johnson. Sean White is the most comfortable. He appears to be the most competent at this point. However, I do think the best chance for them to be successful will be with John Franklin III.
Hey, Jamie, we kick around Auburn football, SEC football from time to time. This is the first time you and Mike have had a chance to talk SEC football, talk some Auburn Tigers. So I'm going to tee it up and let Mike ask you some questions. Before I'm going to come back at the end, I got one specific question for you about the state of the program, considering getting to a BCS Championship game a few years ago and now what we've seen, the results on the field the last couple of years. But I'll let Mike go right now.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Jamie, I really got 3 questions for you. I'll start off. I like to look at the coaching situation. I look at Auburn's coaching situation. You guys have 5 of your 9 position coaches coming in new. Is Auburn going to be able to implement the systems and get on the same page before they start this season with Clemson with all these new coaches? And I just noticed that 5 of the 9 assistant coaches are new because as Malzahn enters his 4th year, that just seems odd to me that we're doing a coaching overhaul, which I think 5 of 9 qualifies as an overhaul, going into the 4th year of a program. Are the coaches going to be able to get on the same page in time?
I would like to say so, and I agree that that is a great question that nobody tends to bring up, and it may be one of the most important questions right there with the quarterback quandary that they have. The thing that may help them out is Cody Burns is, quote-unquote, one of Gus Malzahn's guys. He understands what Malzahn wants to do. I think Malzahn needed badly to surround himself with people that buy into him and his system versus some guys who are just really good coaches that may or may not be fully on board with how he wants to do things. Whether you believe in what Malzahn does or not, he's the guy running the helm. He has proven he can do a good job. He has to have everyone buying in and on the same page. Cody Burns and Herb Hand are 2 guys that are familiar with him, that have worked with him extensively in the past, and I think they will absolutely buy into what he is selling, and that will help them offensively a great deal. When you go over to the defensive side of the ball and you talk about Travis Williams, he's been there. I think Malzahn and the staff are comfortable with him, and I think he's comfortable with them. That leaves you with McGriff and Kevin Steele. McGriff has been around several SEC programs. He's been in the NFL, so he obviously knows what he's doing as a football coach, so hopefully that'll work out. Kevin Steele, it's up to him to establish himself at a program for multiple years because he has bounced around quite a bit over the last 5 to 6 years. That is somewhat of a concern. But the biggest thing, I believe, is if the staff can buy in, the kids will buy in. These kids are a lot smarter than people give them credit for, and I'm not talking about in pre-cal. I'm talking about in football and in life. If there's a problem with the coaches, they sense it. It's like a shark smelling blood. If the kids see that the coaches are not on the same page, there's no chance the team will ever be on the same page.
Jamie, you mentioned Herb Hand, and I think one of the position battles that people are missing because of the quarterback battle is on the offensive line. I've read where Herb Hand has moved Xavier Dampier to center, and if you read some of Malzahn's book, if you read his book about offense, you know how important center is to that offense and how important that offensive line is, getting the count right, determining which side of the field they're going to run the play to. What do you think? Give us your thoughts on the offensive line's development over the spring and how they're going to look come Clemson week.
I think that Dampier getting the extra year last year, picking up the medical red shirt is a big thing. He's an older kid. He's been through a lot. He's a guy that went through the JUCO route, which anybody will tell you is not an easy route. So he's proven himself for that. He lost a job last year, never pouted, ends up getting a medical red shirt and coming back for this year. I think that's a big deal because he's an older, more mature guy. He's got a lot of experience at center, and hopefully his determination is going to be a big thing because at center, it's as much about being a leader and being determined as it is about talent. And so you have to be a leader there. Austin Golston, I don't think was ever truly comfortable at the center position, and he's probably quite possibly the most athletic offensive lineman in their first 5. It's a natural move for him to left tackle. He's got experience in the SEC at tackle from Ole Miss, so it's not something that's completely new to him. Left tackle, yes, but he hasn't played that since being at Prattville, Alabama. However, he's the best athlete on the offensive line, and I think that's going to fit him quite well at left tackle. Dampier hopefully is a vocal gentleman, never met him, but you hear positive things about how he carries himself and how he took things last year when it didn't quite go his way. So I do think that may be something. They just have to get more continuity. The offensive line is about pure continuity, and if they have no continuity, you have no offense. It's always going to be about the offensive lineman. They won't get the headlines, but if you see a good football team, a good offense, you can bet your tail they've got a good offensive line.
Hey, what position did you play in college?
Offensive line.
Okay, I was just wondering. Hey,
I started off on the defensive line, got moved to the offensive line 7th week of the season due to some injury things, and that's where I stayed.
Last question for you. It's quick. How short is the leash on Gus Malzahn? And two-part question: is Jay Jacobs tied to Gus Malzahn?
I would hope that the leash is not as tight as most people think. One thing, because I believe Malzahn is a good person. After all, this is about collegiate sports. It's a big business. It's always going to be about wins and losses, but it's really about the money. And so as long as he's doing the things that he's supposed to do, they need to show progress. If they show progress, they need to allow him to do what he's doing. If you see another season of pure turmoil, I do believe that that's going to signal trouble. And for Jay Jacobs, I think is another good individual. I do believe he's tied to Gus Malzahn for one reason and one reason only, because of all the other coaches that they've moved through, even not in football, in baseball, in basketball. Jay Jacobs has made some moves that people saw as good moves. They did not work out. And so there's so much money tied up in coaches that are no longer in Auburn, Alabama. I do think that he's tied to Gus Malzahn for the reasons of Tony Barbie, for the reasons of Sonny Galloway. I believe that that's why he's tied to Gus Malzahn, is because now this is where you prove that you deserve to be the athletic director at Auburn University, is with your successful hiring of a football coach that can stay. So, yes, fair or unfair, I do believe because of the other coaching moves that has not worked out, I believe he's tied to Gus Malzahn.
Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation joining us here on SEC Breakdown. We come your way every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock there in Alabama Central Time Zone. So, Jamie, one more question for you from me. this Auburn, if you just look at the record and the results, has to be the biggest roller coaster ride. I can't imagine a bigger one in college football history. National champions in 2010, then the last couple Malzahn years, or the last one, they won a bowl game, were like 8-5. Then they bottom out 0-8 in the SEC. The very next season, one of the miraculous turnarounds in the history of college football to get to the national championship game, and now we see the program coming back to a place where they were supposed to be competing for a college football playoff spot the last 2 years and fell well short of that, and it looks to be going in the wrong direction. Your observation of what's going on there, where the program stands, is it on stable ground or maybe not so much?
You know, that's a very difficult question to ask. It's almost like being on the San Andreas Fault in a sense, because you said it. The last few times that Auburn has been expected to do extremely well, I think the statistics are if they start off in the top 5 in the preseason polls, they have finished with below 8 wins each time, the last 3 to 4 times that that's taken place. However, the times that they're not typically expected to do much, such as Nick Marshall's junior year, such as Cam Newton's first year, in times where it appeared to be turmoil filled, they ended up doing well as the underdogs. And that's something that people have to realize about the state of Alabama. People that are Auburn people will absolutely hate this statement. Auburn will forever be the underdog in football in the state of Alabama. Paul Bear Bryant made sure that that will always be the case because of the success that they had. Auburn will always be the redheaded stepchild. It will never change. They can be good. They are better as an underdog. They are better as the hunter than they are as the hunted. And it's been that way for years and years and years. And I think that that is a better spot for them to be in. You can play without the pressure of being the hunted. It's easier to sneak up on people the first 5 weeks, and then everybody knows who you are. But if you can sneak through the first 5, then you've beaten half the battle. So it's important for Auburn to play loose. If there are no expectations, you can go out there and play loose, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah, it's a unique situation where I think it can be argued and justified that this is one of the top 15 programs in college football, but it's in the same state boundaries as most likely the gold standard for college football, and that's the plight of the Auburn Tigers and Gus Malzahn at this point.